What does ready to date even mean?
Yeah, and it's a very good question, because sometimes you're not ready to date, but you think you're supposed to be dating because that's what society, that's what your, group does.
Right. Probably the most common question you get. How do I get a date?
Figure out what's the best route for you, and then in a way that you're comfortable, put yourself out there, right?
Yeah.
Don't take out a billboard, but also don't
Right.
sit in your room in a hermit and say that Hashem's going to take care of the rest.
Right.
Girls really like to know how they're supposed to be dressing. I think that's one of the number one concerns they have. Well, what should I wear?
Right.
You definitely have water in the car, and I feel like also it might be a good idea to have like Tic Tacs or mints, because it creates a certain like relaxed atmosphere of like, yeah, here, have a candy, relax. And a lot of girls are like, oh, I forgot to have gum before this, that, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a thoughtful thing to do.
Music, I always play music when I go on a date.
So that's funny.
For me, it lightens the mood.
So I feel like if you have no clue about this person at all.
If it's more of a frum girl, I put on Isha Ribo. If it's more modern, I put on Omer Adam. It's like, I'm very okay with rejection, Baruch Hashem. I work it up. I try to at least once a day to get rejected.
And if they match the things on your list and there's enough potential, great, go out again. And always see that the potential is growing.
Welcome to another episode of Positivity. Today I have here an exciting dating coach. Her name is Mrs Hanna Kahana, and she's doing this for a long time. I noticed that she's not just a dating coach, which I think is her specialty, or that's what you love most, but you're also a wellness coach. You speak about how it's okay to not be okay, how you shouldn't be judging your day, how to be the most productive, and we love coaches on this podcast because it's like a little bit in between the therapy and the regular person. A coach is somebody that usually has a collective data of information. So I'm going to start with dating, which is very interesting and something that we haven't had in a while on the podcast, but so many people are dating or they love information about dating. And then if we have time, we're going to go into maybe talking about wellness and general day-to-day life. But help me welcome Mrs. Hanna Kahana. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's get right into it. I introduced you, and I wanna first of all understand what's the meaning of dating. Technically speaking, I told you before we started, I want to understand it from a perspective that when somebody that's 18 or 19 listening to this, a boy or a girl, they can understand what is the process of dating. There's so many variations. There's obviously in our Yiddish world, there's the Hasidish world, there's the Bisho. Give us a little bit of background. What is a date? What is the purpose of a date?
So it's a very good question because, like you said, there's a lot of different backgrounds to think about and to incorporate to answer that question.
Yeah.
What I would say is that across the board, when it comes to dating, it's about expectations. Like, what are your expectations for a relationship? Mm-hmm. And once you set that expectation of what you're looking for, that's how you can then translate it into the date that you want to have, number one, and then the marriage that you want to have, number two, the relationship. Mm-hmm. And I always say, it's funny because people ask me in the Hasidish world, they have bishos, and does that really work? And I think everyone has their opinion about dating. I think it should be done this way. I think it should be done that way. Yeah. But I said it's about your expectation. Bishos do work for a certain group of people because their expectations may be different than somebody, let's say, who's yeshivish, or let's say more in the middle, more or more modern, whatever. I'm very not into labels, but just for the sake of understanding the circumstances. So really, when you're starting off, when you're 18 or 19 or whatever, whenever you start dating, the first question you have to ask yourself is, what is my expectation? What do I think of a relationship? How do I define a relationship? And what am I looking for? It's a lot of I questions, which I think a lot of times gets overlooked, and instead people start incorporating the rules. Okay, what are the rules? Date number one is supposed to be 2 hours. Right. We're supposed to go to a lobby. We're not supposed to go to a lobby if you're having a basho. We're supposed to have cookies. Don't have too much biscotti. There's a lot of rules.
Right.
So I always say the number one rule in dating is there's no rules. You have to, of course, there's the society that you're in, and you have to be respectful, 100%. But number one is, what do I want? What am I looking for? And then you go off of that. And then you start talking to shadchanim or however you decide to take the next step.
Yeah, that's very well explained. I remember you made a video a while ago already. You were it's wrong to go out on a date and have ask the girl where she wants to go, or it's wrong to let the girl plan the date. And I was like, hold on, this is the dating coach I want to bring on. And then I noticed that you were just being sarcastic about it, and you're making a point about how there's no rules. But anyway, before we get into that, so I think what you just said, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you have to start with the end goal in mind, like seeing if you want a relationship right now, or what type of future you want to have. Exactly. And based on that, you'll see in which community you are and how the dating process is done, and try to follow that process, basically, without exact rules.
Right, exactly. Meaning you, for the most part, I think people want to conform in a certain sense to the society that they live in.
Right.
But at the same time, the way to kind of balance the two between what you want and what you think society wants is to find that middle ground. And I say that with anything. Find the middle ground. So basically, understand what you want and understand how to incorporate that into the society that you live in.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so now we have seen, I'm going to jump a little bit forward, but we have seen a shift by Hasidim, and this is coming literally from my brother that's still in yeshiva and a Hasidic yeshiva. He told me that approximately 50% of his yeshiva are going out on dates, even though they're Hasidic. So definitely dating has shifted into something where Hasidim do it. Obviously, a date doesn't have to mean that you're going out to Manhattan or to a restaurant.
Right.
It can be just meeting in a lobby, but not the typical basho. Can you talk to me about that? What have you seen? Why has it shifted? Is it a good thing that it shifted?
I think that the reason why there has been this shift is because there's been a lot more accessibility of information in general. So for daters, for married couple, in general, I feel like the ability to access information has become much better. So people are more informed. People, before they start dating, even if you're not, having internet in your house or, wherever you're holding, I think people are more in the know. And because you're more in the know, your expectations change. And then when there's that shift, when your expectations change, you have to then start to incorporate what your new expectations are. So if you're getting more knowledge and you're seeing that, okay, one second, relationships seem to work better if you communicate more, if you have more of a knowledge of the person before you get married, right? Like if you're starting to hear more of that, then you're going to want to say, oh, I want to go out then with this person before I get married. I don't want to have a basho. So the more knowledge you have, I think the more accessibility to information, there's automatically going to be a shift towards whatever's out there in the world.
Right.
And I think that it's not a bad thing, I think, but it's always about balance, always about finding a middle ground. So, you take what you're hearing and you try to incorporate it into your needs and your wants, and you find the middle ground. So if you're in a Hasidic community and you want to have, a certain amount of dates before you get married and you want to get to know the person, not just in front of your family at a Shabbos table, then it's okay, like you said, to maybe go to a lobby, right? You're not going to Starbucks per se or anything like that.
But it's a little bit different because you're driving, you're getting to see, since we are open to so many different scenarios, you're getting to see over here a different perspective. What is the boy like in a car when he drives? How does he drive? That even for a girl, that's a big thing. How does he drive? Does he cut off everything? Does he get agitated? Does he get aggravated? So you're saying by going on a date, you just have an ability to find out a little bit more, versus when you were to do it at home. Okay, that is very interesting. Okay, now another question is, when is the right time to date? Because that is something that I feel like for many parents, they have one time when it's right to date. They feel like their kid is ready to date. And then the kid says, I don't feel ready to date. So how do you define this question of, am I ready to date? Am I not ready to date? What does ready to date even mean? Yeah, and it's a very good question, because sometimes you're not ready to date, but you think you're supposed to be dating because that's what your group does. Right. 19, you got back from seminary, this, that. Okay, great, yeshiva, let's go. So I think what you have to ask yourself is it worth it to you right now? When I say worth it, I mean, you recognize that there's going to be effort and difficulty, and it's not going to be smooth sailing. And you know what? If it happens on the first guy or for the first girl, it's a huge bracha. But don't set that as your expectation. And instead, ask yourself if you feel like all the hard work is worth it. There's no way to know
what all those variables are in dating, right? There's so many different variables, but you have to ask yourself, whatever you do know, is it worth it to you right now because you want to take the next step? So even if you don't know 100%, if you feel like it's worth it, you'll put the effort in, and that's what's needed, the effort.
Wow, I can absolutely relate to that because, in other words, you didn't answer the question because there is no ready. There's nothing ready, but you're saying that if you have a readiness to go into something that you don't exact willingness, then you have the readiness. Like and that's how I felt many times in my life. At certain times I felt like, no, I don't have a willingness to be ready. And at certain times in my life I said, you know, which like right now, I feel like I'm ready. You know, I'm single. I was never married. I'm a bocher, and I feel like I'm willing to go into something that I have no idea what it is or how it's going to turn out. I'm literally going with the flow. So defining ready is defining whether you are willing to go into that kind of unknown at the moment and embrace whatever is going to come.
Right.
There's a chance that it's going to work out. There's also a chance it's not going to work out. People always, when I tell them that, they're like, chaz v'shulam, I'm like, okay, it's very nice to say chaz v'shulam, but there is now a statistically 20 to 30% of people, I think, within our community that are in marriages and it doesn't work out. And instead of chaz v'shulam, just make, you know, make peace with it, and based on that be cautious or be prepared or be the right person or go out enough times and make sure that's right, speak to the right people, the right Rebbe or the right coach or friend. But I think you answered that question very, very well.
Right, I just wanted to add, because in general, I think this really comes with a lot of different phases of life. Like, how do you know that you're ready to, you know, take the next stage with anything, with a work, with a job, with different things. And you always have to ask yourself, you know, if the willingness is there, because there's so many variables. People a lot of times will look at all the variables and say, did I turn over every stone? And when you have that attitude, you end up like never being ready, essentially. Right.
Yeah, I heard this from one of the big ones, either Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates, one of the top.
One of the important ones.
Saying this, yeah, exactly. He was saying that also when you make a decision, you can only be 70% sure or 30% sure, something like that. Like basically, you can never be sure enough when you make a decision in business. So it is about jumping in.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so we answered that question. Now I have the big question, right? So I have the willingness to go into that unknown, to jump in. This is probably the most common question you get. How do I get a date?
Okay, it's actually funny. I don't think that's the most common question I get.
No, but that's what most people are asking, right? They're looking for it. How do I get a date? Do I... First of all, what's the best way to get a date? And that varies obviously in communities, and we can talk about that. But how does one get a date? I think that in the non-Jewish world, it is very common to just walk up to someone and socialize or go to a place with social. And then there's obviously this way of having with friends. Anyway, I'll let you answer the question.
No,
how does one get a date?
Points.
And especially, a lot of the people listening to this are Hasidische Bucherim. So they have to kind of go through a process with their parents and have a system and a shadchan. And that can be very challenging. It can also be very easy, but it can also be very challenging.
Right. And I will say that I think that it is, for the most part, it's usually easier for the boys in this respect. There are more difficulties for the boys when it comes to other aspects of dating. I think planning the date, leading the date. But when it comes to getting a date, I feel like a lot of the boys have it a little bit easier because shadchanim will approach them oftentimes, or, you know, if you're by a wedding, right, and there's a shadchan there or whatever, they'll come over to you, or things like that, or, you know, those mothers that come over to this or that, or at a work thing, people will come over to you more than, I think for women, for girls also they will come over, but for boys I feel like it's usually a little bit easier. But when you are looking for a date and you're not sure how to go about it, just to backtrack for a second, I think that it's very important to ask yourself what route you're looking to take. If you're looking to take the shadchan route and you're looking to, you know, network that way, what I would say is don't look for that rule where it says, okay, so you have to speak to at least 20 shadchanim, go to the top one in Brooklyn, and only speak to this person, only speak to that person. first find what you're comfortable with, because it could be a lot. I always say it's almost like a casting call, you know, like it's like you feel like you have to put yourself out there, you have to sell yourself, and it's a lot. So I think that you have to ask yourself first, which like approach are you comfortable with, and then you start from there. So if you want to speak to shadchanim, you know, maybe start networking with people you know that know shadchanim, and be selective. Don't feel like you have to speak to everyone, because shadchanim, yes, they do mean the best, but there are some that are way busier than others, and it's more of an assembly line, and there's less personal. So you have to understand like what it is that you're okay with. Right. And I wanted to add one more thing when we're talking about our willingness. There are times where there's like an ebb and flow to your willingness also, you know, where you could say, okay, I think I'm ready to meet like 2 shadchanim, and I don't think I'm at a place where I could go to a dating event.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you have to know where you're holding. So essentially, just to like summarize, figure out what's the best route for you, and then in a way that you're comfortable, put yourself out there, right?
Yeah.
Don't take out a billboard, but you know, also don't sit in your room in a hermit and say that Hashem's going to take care of the rest.
Right. In terms of getting a date, because I feel like, especially let's say for a person like me, a Hasidish boy, a little bit older already, in a certain sense, I feel like a shadchan, for the most part, doesn't have really what I'm looking for. They might have, they could have, but the majority what a shadchan does, especially in the Hasidish community, is they have the people that are anywhere between ages 18 and 22, and they pair up these typical shadichim that they have. So it does get a little bit trickier for any person listening to this, and they're 25 and above, a boy or a girl. It becomes a little bit more unique in terms of how they find their bashert. So I think that I do think that reaching out to friends or making an introduction or asking for an introduction, which is what I do. If I see a girl on Instagram and I feel like this can be a potential for me, in some cases I'll message, but in a lot of cases I'll just reach out to a friend. If I see a mutual friend is following that girl, I'll message them so that they can comfortably say yes or no. So I think that that's another way of how we're shifting in this world, where in this age where people do have other options to getting a date, not just the typical shadchanim route.
Yeah, and it's not frowned upon. It's still within that realm of kosher. Yes. And I think that what you mentioned was great.
And I encourage people to do that. I encourage boys. I tell them, especially Hasidim, I tell them, there's never such a thing as you don't have a date. You can always call a shadchan or 10 shadchanim and get yourself a date. You can always call your brother or your sister.
Right, everybody knows somebody.
Right, everybody knows somebody. I don't want to hear, and if you can't, or if you don't know the shadchanim, or then go and ask out a girl, because at the end of the day, as inappropriate you might say that it is, right, it's also inappropriate to stay single for the rest of your life and play the victim. That's true. So, you know.
And if the truth is, there's 2 aspects to that. If they're not doing that, then you have to ask yourself why. Is it like they're being lazy? Because also there's a certain where you get to a certain age and you sometimes get complacent, you sometimes get used to the things you have, and it gets difficult to get out of that space. That could be one aspect. Right. Second aspect is that you know, if they feel like it's just not done, or they're waiting for it to come to them or something like that. And I think that what you mentioned before about like just putting yourself out there is great. And another idea to do that, how to do that, is, you know, even if you want to get together with a group of your friends, right? Meaning forget having girls there for a second, but really keeping it kosher. Get together with a group of your friends and and make a suggestion party, right? It doesn't have to be, you know, and you
everybody
sit there,
has a
everyone
cousin,
comes up with an idea for somebody else. What I will add to that though is that you want to, at a certain age, you also want to, not that be picky, but you want to be selective, because there's also always a concern of burnout, where you're dating and dating and dating, and it's always the wrong person, and then you just get to a point where you don't want to go out anymore. Especially for boys, I feel like, you know, you're the one that's paying, you're the one that's, for the most part, unless you have a different husband, but, you know, you're the one that's paying, you're the one that's having to think where to go, what to do, lead the date. A lot of it is on the boy. So if you're not going to be a little bit selective, that can also kind of like come to bite you, because then you're just going out with anybody, and then you're not happy. So it's like that balance, that middle ground.
Right. Okay, so how to get a date? Either reach out to Shatchen
or take initiative.
Take initiative, whatever that means. Like you said, get together with some of your friends, boys or girls, and discuss.
Yeah, it doesn't have to
options.
be like the stereotypical way anymore because
Yeah.
there's so much accessibility, so many different ways you could do things. Incorporate that into your dating life as well.
Okay, so if someone receives the date, they have an option to go out with a boy or a girl. Where should they go? And this is usually the question for the guy.
Right.
What's the initial answer? I'm going to answer for myself, if I may first. Like, for me, it depends which girl, how we met, where we met. I can sometimes meet a girl at a business exposition, at a show, and I'll say, by the way, do you want to go out to eat? And so it's a little bit more casual, but it's also the right thing to do after a long day of working. You
Right.
can't. I'm not taking you to a lobby now to sit there for another 3 hours.
With a soda.
We're sitting in a lobby for an exposition show,
Right.
for an expo, whatever. You know, it's like,
And everyone's starving.
right. So you gotta kind of know the vibe, and that's what I've done. But ideally, what is the best place to go for a date?
So first, I just want to say kudos to you that you would do something like that. I feel like a lot of boys wouldn't, and you should. And if you feel like you want to go after something, go after it. Like, ask. The worst that's going to
Thank
happen is that they'll say no,
Right.
and then you'll move on.
Yeah.
So
Thank
that's
you.
just first of all. Second of all, I would say that I always suggest that you set yourself up for yourself to be the best you. Set your circumstances up so that you feel the most comfortable
Wow.
and that you feel like you're going to bring your A game. So if you hate lobby dates, don't go to a lobby. You're going to be bored. You're going to space out, and you're not going to listen.
Right. Okay.
But if you feel like a bookstore is great because it gives you the ability to jump around a little bit, talk about this, talk about that, gives you conversation, even if you don't necessarily love books, do that. So lean into anything that you feel is going to make you bring your A game.
It's amazing. I never thought about that. I don't know why. I always thought about going to the right location, maybe for the girl, but I guess this is another way to look at it. Go where you feel the best. Yeah, that's amazing. Ideally, what is a good spot, generally speaking, that a girl would appreciate?
So it's funny that you said food because in the circumstance that you gave, I feel like it makes sense. Like you had a long day, go for
Right.
food. A lot of girls I feel like don't like going for food on a first date because it's
They
very
feel
personal.
uncomfortable,
You know, it's
yeah.
like I just met you. I'm gonna have a whole burger in front of you right now.
Yes.
Eat sushi. Like what's
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
You know, it gets very complicated. So I would say ideally for a girl, anything that is just light and casual, right? So usually that means coffee or something along those lines. But it's funny because I have a dater who is so good about finding the most like craziest random spots where like it's like the coolest coffee place that also has this random thing or that random thing. So if you're into that, then do that.
Right.
But essentially, I think for girls, it's always like, the lighter and less complicated, the better, but really for the both of you. Like we were saying, like it's more about how you're going to feel in that circumstance. So, if walking in Central Park is going to make you feel great because you're talking, you're outside, you could really like just add to any conversation and bring in so many different things, then do that. It doesn't have to be you sweeping them off your feet, off their feet right away.
Yeah.
You want to present well. So however that translates.
Right. I was going to ask about how to go dressed, but I feel like you're going to say whatever makes you feel most alive.
Well, it's funny. I would say, but I'm actually going to take your advice here, and I would say that you want to go like work off of the vibe of the situation. So if you just went to an expo and you're all dressed, you're not going to go change. But I'm just saying, but meaning like if you want to go for a casual walk in Central Park, don't wear this like super, I don't know, like whatever outfit with an extra sweater, extra buttons that you feel like you're going to start sweating in, and be super hot, and do something that you essentially dress for the occasion.
Right, unless it's like you're lavish. So if you're a chusa, then you only go with the rekel, then or you feel
and if it's calm night and you're wearing the white stuff.
Right. Really. I'm just gonna say, for me personally, I usually go on a date in sweatpants and a hoodie.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
but
my
are they the nicer
sweatpants.
Sweatpants, the ones that look like
no,
pants?
not at all. No, did you notice that this is sweatpants?
I didn't actually. That's
Okay,
true.
so these sweatpants cost $300. That's
Okay.
why maybe. So I go only with sweatpants, and I love hoodies. I feel like I look great in them. People tell me I look like a teddy bear. I look, friendlier.
So you're saying that's what gives you confidence?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Or a nice sweatshirt even. That
Okay.
to me, a white shirt is something that haven't worn in a very long time.
So the only thing I would say, and I think that's fine, is let the girl know then. It doesn't have to be like, by the way, I'm going to wear a sweatshirt, but more just like, oh, I'm keeping it casual, so feel free to do the same.
Yeah.
So you're leaving it open, but girls really like to know how they're supposed to be dressing. I think that's one of the number one concerns they have. Well, what should I wear?
Right. A hoodie is universal. I know most girls won't show up in a hoodie.
Right, but they want to dress according to how you're dressing. So if you're dressing in a hoodie and sweatpants, they don't want to wear like, high heels and a ball gown dress, and you're going for a walk in Central Park.
Right, that's a good point. What does a girl have to wear to a date? Is there any rules, or because some will get dressed like they're going to Hasana,
right?
And some would keep it more casual, probably no makeup even.
Right, I would say be the same idea. Really, be true to yourself, because if you're going to dress it up in a Hasana gown and you're going to have your high heels, but you can't walk in them, and you're super uncomfortable, like the guy's going to notice that. The boy will notice that, and it's not going to make them feel any more comfortable with you.
Right.
You have to be comfortable.
Yeah. Okay. I wrote over here, step by step from pickup to drop off.
Okay.
So what does, for many people, I guess it starts with a clean car?
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Okay.
And girls do notice that.
Opening doors, is that essential? By the way, I'm going to make a break over here. It sounds a little bit maybe like we're doing this for 3-year-olds, but that's our goal, literally.
Yeah.
If anyone ever asks me any question about dating and shidduchim, I'm going to just send them this podcast once it's out. We're literally going over the basics for people to understand. There's no question here is rocket science.
But you know what? Sometimes the basics are so not talked
Things
about.
that people miss.
Yeah, you just miss.
Okay, so we're starting with
step number one.
Yeah.
You have your sweatpants on and your hoodie on, and then you're in a clean car.
Yes.
Okay, so you're in your clean car, and you picked her up already. You're in the car. Is that what we're starting off?
So I don't know. For a first date, do you ring the bell? Do you knock the door, or do you tell them to come out, or do you wait outside the car?
I'll take it a step even further. Are you going to meet up with them? Because sometimes that happens based on circumstance. Like where it's
like
just easier. Right. Oh, if you meet halfway,
both drive. Yeah.
Right. Or if you're not based out of the same city, right? So okay, I'll meet you in Teaneck if you're, you know.
Okay.
So that I feel like is also something that's a little bit controversial, because I feel like you have to know the girl in that sense. Meaning, if you have no clue about the girl, then ask somebody that does know the girl to know if she's going to be annoyed that you're not coming to pick her up, or is she amenable and she's fine to meet you. Both of those things don't indicate a certain personality trait. It's more that like you don't know somebody yet, so either you're comfortable meeting up with them, or you just like you don't know them, you don't know the surroundings, so therefore you want them to pick you up because it's less stress. It doesn't indicate like, oh, they're princessy if they want you to pick them up. Just a side point.
Right. Okay.
So either you picked her up, or you met them, and now they're in your car.
Do you have to open the door?
Do you have to open up the door? I think that for the most better err onto the side of caution with these type of things, where open up the door the first time, be a mensch, and you know what, if she's like, oh, it's fine, and you don't have to. But if you don't open up the door and she wanted to, then you're already like striking out. So I would just start off with opening up the door, but I see your hesitation. So why do you not like opening up the door?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how you saw the hesitation.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna be honest and say that for me it's like, if I like where the date is going, I'm opening doors. If I don't, I'm just like, yeah, it's fine.
Really?
Like, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit rude, but it's kind of, that's how, if I go out with a girl and I really like her and I really respect her and I really feel that this can go somewhere, then obviously I'll open the door because I just want to be nice. I have an extra drive to open that door for her and close it.
Okay, but what about just being a mensch?
For the first time, I'll always be a mensch.
Okay.
You understand? For the first time, I'll always be a mensch.
Okay.
But if we met for 2 hours and already at the end of the coffee date, we were like, so probably it's not going to... Yeah, exactly. Then just open the door. I don't know. Maybe it's not being menschlich, but that was my hesitation. That's why I thought I'm not going to say it. But you asked, so I did say it.
Okay, no, but I like the honesty. I feel like also really after the first door open, it's kind of just like whatever makes sense. You know what I mean? Like if you end up where you're leaving the venue and she happens to whatever reason go first, you're not gonna like start jogging to the door to open it up for her. You have to know what the circumstances. And I think most girls at that point are not like, waiting for you to open up the door. They'll just open up the door. It's
Right.
not rocket science.
Okay. Have water in the car?
Yeah,
Because I know that
definitely.
that's essential.
Definitely have water in the car, and I feel like also it might be a good idea to have like Tic Tacs or mints, because it creates a certain like relaxed atmosphere of
Right.
like, yeah, here, have a candy, relax. And a lot
Right.
of girls are like, oh, I forgot to have gum before this, that, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like it's a
Right.
thoughtful thing to do.
Temperature?
I would say do it the temperature that if you like it like -5, obviously be towards the middle.
Yeah.
But if you're regular at 70,
Right.
keep it that temperature and say, by the way, you could change it
Just
to whatever
ask,
you
right.
want.
Music? I always play music when I go on a date.
So that's
For
funny.
me, it lightens the mood.
So I feel like if you have no clue about this person at all,
If it's more of a frum girl, I put on Isha Ribo. If it's more modern, I put on Omer Adam. It's like...
you take the reins. Okay, so I'm just curious if you feel like that impacts your ability to have a good conversation.
Yeah, it definitely does. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish in a sense. You understand? It's like, let's not be so focused on the conversation, because it's not only about the conversation. It's about how we feel, how we're enjoying, how we get along sitting together in a car.
Right.
The conversation is just some pointers.
So that's valid. So what I would say is this middle ground idea is when you're first talking to her for the first time, she just got in your car, I would say hold off on the music just because it's your first conversation.
How about it's like from level 1? I'm not like blasting music, obviously. It's like
Okay.
very, very low.
So keep it on level
for
1.
background,
But
yeah.
then I would say, like, if you're already coming back into the car from wherever you went to,
Yeah.
put the music on. Meaning, so, because you already got to know each other a little bit.
Right.
But if you're starting off, and like you have music on and you're like, what do you like to do for fun? And like you can't hear,
Right.
it seems a little bit like you're disinterested.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. I have a little bit of a question. I don't know if it goes into. Do you think that guys should message a girl directly if they want to go out with her, or does it seem creepy, or does it depend which community they are from?
So I think that if it's the type of community where it makes sense and or even if you're going out with somebody that you know that it would be acceptable,
Yeah.
I think it's fine. But more importantly, you have to ask yourself if you want to open up that can of worms, or if you want to save it for when you know that you like the person. Because it's always a little bit annoying to have to message them directly if you feel like you're not sure which way this is going to go. If you have a good feeling and you want to start connecting with them already, then then text them and message them directly. It's also like a personality thing. Like if you've been burnt so many times before and you didn't even want to go out in the first place, but your friend said you had to, or your mother said you had to, then you don't necessarily want to start texting them right away.
Ah, right.
So, to kind of think ahead a little bit and say, okay, so if I really think this is going to go somewhere and I want to make that connection already, then text them.
Right.
Make it easier for yourself, because it is easier.
Right.
It's less
After
broken
a first
telephone.
date, or after going out 2 or 3 times?
So if you had a fantastic first date and you kind of want to like clinch the deal and like have a second date,
Yeah.
then go for it at the end of the first date and say, okay, thank you so much. Like, I guess we'll be in touch, to set up another date or to discuss. You never want to meaning if you finish the date, you don't want to put them on the spot.
Right.
But you also don't want to leave it so open-ended if you want to go out with them again. So you want to give them a little bit of room, but you also don't want to make them feel super awkward and force them into a yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll be in touch. I had such a great time. Thank you so much. You can also, just backtracking, you can also allude to future dates and see how they receive it, right? Like, oh, you don't know how to play pool? I'm going to teach you how to play pool.
Right.
I'm an expert and I know how to, I'm going to make sure that you play
Right.
pool. It's essential, right? See something like that and see how they receive it. If they're like,
Yeah.
and okay, you're not going out again. So don't wait till at the end of the day, don't start asking for their phone number.
Right.
But if you see that they're like, oh, it's so funny. Yeah, okay, I also want you to teach me how to drive on the highway. Then okay, so we're
Right.
talking about future. There's a
Right.
possibility.
What about an initial text, a first message to ask a girl out? What should that look like?
So I always say that humor is probably the best thing to start off with. Girls are I feel like very attracted to humor in general. It's always it's one of the biggest things that you see that very, very commonly where you have guys that are maybe not the most Brad Pitt of the world or whatever, but they have a great sense of humor and it's very attractive and that's how they get the girl. So I would say start off with something just like funny, a little bit of witty, something like that
Right.
to start off the conversation, and then you ask them to go out.
Right.
You don't want to start off the first text, hi, how are you? Would you like to go out?
Right.
Right? You just want it to be a little bit softer.
Right.
So if you know them from before, if you saw them at something, if you have some sort of joke with them already, a little bit of a rapport, use that. Bring
Right.
that in.
Right.
Use a joke.
Essentially, you're creating the attraction.
Right, exactly. Like you're basically showcasing why they should be going out with you.
Right. Yeah, I think that it's important to create a little bit of attraction. That's what you just said with the humor. And then you're trying, I think, to create a little bit of a sense of comfort with them, that potentially you feel like they are a nice person.
Right. Like, oh, I
So
actually,
it doesn't have to just be one message to ask her out, because that, I think, is very direct. So maybe starting off with a message and saying, you know, like, it was great to see you, and, you know, you were a showstopper or something like that. Or,
Right. It also gives you a chance as a guy to see if she's interested by the way
Right.
she responds.
Right.
She says thanks.
Right.
Period.
Right. Exactly. Then you're right. Yeah, a common thing would be something that I use, which is usually a girl will say a little bit what they do, and I would be like, seems like you are a very busy person. Do you ever make time to go out?
Right. So
or
you
for fun?
segue into that, which
Exactly.
is good. That's
and
great.
then she has the opportunity to either say, no, I'm just too overwhelmed with work, and then you know that she's saying that. But if she wants to go out with you and she thinks that you're going there, she's going to say, yeah, what do you mean? Yeah, every day I finish work at 5 and I'm free for the night. And
Right.
so that's where
Right. It's like feelers. You're putting out those feelers.
Yeah, that's where you want to say, you know, like, oh, and before asking out, which is super important, you want to ask her if she's even available tonight. So you can ask a question, are you busy today and tomorrow? And if her answer is no, I'm not busy, you have all the keys at this point
Exactly.
to say, hi, you know, can we go out for a drink?
Right, and if you want to be humorous in that situation, you could say something like, "Let me ask you asking for a friend here. You know, do you appreciate if somebody is direct and asks you out on a date, you know, via text,
like
or do you think that's like, you know, super inappropriate? Because
Right.
my friend wanted to know. You know,
Right.
like you make it like a
That's
joke.
very smart. Yeah, right. Or I ask, would you rather be bitten by an alligator, or would you go out with me? And then
Right, that's
they
great.
have the choice.
Right, and there's your humor
yeah,
right there.
I just messaged a girl last week with this question, and she told me, would you rather be eaten by an alligator or be rejected by me?
That was a good retort.
Right. I said eaten by an alligator.
But you know, but that's great because that gives you the ability to
Yeah.
keep your self-esteem there.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like it doesn't. It
Yeah.
gives you a chance to fall gracefully.
Yeah, no, I'm okay. I'm very okay with rejection, Baruch Hashem. I work
That's
it
good.
up. I try to at least once a day to get rejected, and that's great. You know,
I like that. I think that should be a quote somewhere. I try once a day, at least once
Yeah,
a
no,
day to
I
get
actually
rejected.
make an
That's great.
effort. I asked out a girl yesterday, and she told me I'm not available currently. So I said, should I reach out? So I said, am I even speaking to you, or is this your manager? Like, you're not available? And then she's like, I'm not available to go out with you. So I said, okay, no problem. But I take it very well, and
Take it in
I'm
stride.
okay, and yeah. Okay, anyway, so that's with texting. What's the duration of a first date, second date, third date?
So-
Duration, yeah.
First date, you don't want to keep them too long because you're also not sure. I mean, you could tell, there's always ways to tell a little bit, but you're not sure 100% if they're having a fantastic time. So you don't want it to be too long. So I would say,
Yeah.
you know, within that range of 2 hours. But
Right.
with the stipulation that if you're both having a fantastic time and you're laughing and it's great, don't look at your clock like, you know, like she's going
Right.
to turn into a pumpkin and you have to run back.
Right.
So you don't want to be disrespectful and do it, let's say, less than 2 hours. I would say 2 hours is like your
The sweet
line.
spot, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I think this is very important, the follow-ups and how to decide. So you go out and you had this great time with a boy, or you had this great time with a girl. How do you decide if, should I go out with this person again? Is it the right one? Or is thinking about if it's the right one too much already, and you just have to
Yeah.
think if you enjoy it? Yeah, is that, maybe I gave away the answer.
No, but what I would say is when you're going out with somebody, there's one thing to keep in mind is you ask yourself after the date, also not on the date. Because a lot of people do that and they're thinking too much on the date, and they end up not even knowing if they had a good time because there's so much in their own head. So after the date, you sit down with yourself and you say, okay, is there enough potential that it warrants another date? Meaning, so you're not looking at how much do I like him, am I going to marry them tomorrow? Because you don't know any of the answers to those questions. So you weigh the potential that exists. Okay. And that gives you the ability to see if you want to go to the next date. And I always, the concept of date till you hate, I'm really not a fan of, because I think that...
I never even knew about that.
A lot of shadchanim will say that, oh, just date till you hate, because if you don't hate the person, then great, then keep dating them. But that just, I feel like is like a best way to get to burnout, is you just keep dating and dating, and you almost don't even want to go out to begin with because you have a fear of getting stuck. So what I would say is that go out, and then if you say, you know what, you have to have your list of things that you're looking for. And if they match the things on your list and there's enough potential, great, go out again. And always see that the potential is growing. If it's getting stagnant, ask yourself why. Maybe is there something that you're doing, you're not bringing something to the table that's holding back? Or is it just that they're not for you? And they could not be for you after date number 1.
Right.
You don't have to give it 2 dates. I will say that.
Right.
A lot of people feel like you have to. I don't think so.
Right. I also think so. I think I usually decide quickly.
You're not opening the door for her on the date already. You decide very quickly.
No, I actually do. I like to say at the end of the date, I kind of like to say where I think it's going. And I'm a fan of not wasting my time. So like if 100%. It's, I've had many dates with girls where we just both say at the end of the date, so yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you. Obviously, you don't think it's for me, and I don't think it's for you. Not I would say that. It's usually the energy in the room. Yeah, exactly. And I'm a fan of that, because don't waste time. Don't waste your own time. Don't waste other people's time.
I had somebody that at the end of a date that they knew wasn't going well, that was mutual. They were giving each other pointers about what to do for the future. Oh, really? Which I thought was great, which I thought was so funny. Because
it's about being open. I think communication is everything. Communication is everything when you are actually in a relationship or married. You got to have communication. If you can't decide at the end of the date where this is going, then it's... and I understand sometimes it's uncomfortable, so that's why it's okay if you don't want to tell them in their face. But if people are comfortable, then I think it's okay to say. What's the most common dating mistakes that people make?
I think the most common one is that people get very stuck in the rules or what they think they should be feeling based on just society. Oh, well, how come I'm not feeling the sparks? How come, my best friend or my neighbor or my husband, my friend's husband's friend was telling us that, after date number 5, you really should be feeling a certain way, or you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And, definitely don't do that on date number 3. You cannot talk about that on date number 2. And instead of just being in the moment, they get stuck on the rules and society. I think if daters would just pause and focus more on what they would like, what they are wanting out of a relationship, it would make the dating process so much less daunting and so much less annoying, I feel like.
Right. I just got very curious. I mean, we should have probably asked this in the beginning. Maybe I can put this in the beginning, whatever. But anyway, I don't usually edit much of the podcast. How did you get into this? Like, what made you be so big? Because you have very clear answers. You have also different answers, not the typical. So how did you become a coach or a dating coach?
So Baruch Hashem, thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny because I feel like throughout my entire life, I always, even as like a little kid, I always appreciated like interactions with people and getting to know people and things like that. And then when much later on in life, when I was, working already, I had a coworker that was getting married. It was actually a Hasidic coworker, and she was engaged. She came over to me, and I wasn't best friends with her. I didn't know her that well, but she came over to me, and she was horrified. She was so scared, and she just had very basic questions about her relationship. It wasn't anything crazy, nothing that required any big investigation, but I just spoke to her about it, and she felt so much better, and that kind of like clicked in my mind as like, this is such a important thing that people don't have access to, and that's why I got into it.
Wow, and you've been doing this for a while, I guess.
Yeah, over 5 years, I would say. I would say, like,
Very nice.
professionally 5 years. Before that, for all my friends and everyone else,
Right.
at least 10 years probably.
Right, and you do just dating, or you also
So I'm a
coach?
certified life coach. So
Right.
there's a lot of overlap there, because the way that you date well is if you, like you said, if you have wellness in your life, right? So if you have confidence in yourself, if you have a good sense of self, all that. So a lot of it overlaps, and I do just regular life coaching as well, just helping people in their daily lives, completing
Right.
tasks and things like that. But I primarily focus on dating because that's kind of like what I appreciate the most.
Right. It's also pretty temporary, by the way, right? Like it's
Right. Meaning there's like there's a constant
flow of new
Right.
people, and people leave. Right. Nice.
But it's for a good cause. It's for a good reason why they're leaving, so it's
Yeah.
fine.
My next question is I think a little bit of a loaded topic, but it's super important because as we discuss all these details about dating, I think it's super important to be that kind of person that people want. And again, I'm a big believer of saying you're perfect just the way you are, and that's beautiful. But then I'm also a very big believer in being your best self as well. You know.
Sure.
So what does it mean to be a boy that everybody wants, and what does it mean to be a girl that everybody, or not everybody, a majority of people would say yes? Obviously, if you line up over here 10 guys and you bring in 10 girls, they're going to choose one over the other.
Yeah.
For everybody, it's going to be different, but there's going to be a guy that's going to stand out, and there's going to be a guy that's going to disappear in the group. Nobody's going to want that kind of guy. And the same is with girls. If guys have to choose a girl, there's going to be a certain girl that everybody says, "Wow, yes, this is the girl that we want." And we know that in reality as well. It's not.
Sure.
It's not just.
Not just in fairy tales.
Yes. So what does that look like?
So I think that the biggest thing that you can work on, anyone can work on, is confidence. Confidence is something that translates into every aspect of your life, especially, we're talking about the topic of dating, but really anything. And if you are able to work on your confidence and get to a point where you have a good sense of self, that is something that attracts people, because along with confidence and a sense of self is authenticity, right? And people are attracted to what they know is real. So, if you, it's also like if you have confidence, right? You could say the same thing as somebody else is saying, but it's delivered differently because of that confidence. So I think that's really the number one thing that makes it the it person.
Like you're saying, no matter your height or size or
No matter
weight or age,
anything, a hoodie
have
or
a
sweatpants or a ball gown. If you're coming in and you I own this room, but not in a Bulgarian way, right? It's like
then
you have
that becomes attractive.
just recognizing your qualities. Obviously, you recognize where it comes from, and it comes from Hashem, but recognizing what you have and owning it.
I was thinking the same thing, because you can have like 10 guys standing in front of here and in front of us, and it can be the guy that looks good and he's tall and he's handsome and he's successful, he's a lawyer and whatever, and everybody says no, and then you have a guy that's
slightly schmazel.
Yeah, schlamazel, and short and fat and doesn't have the nicest groomed beard and whatever, but you can see that he's
Everyone's
funny.
gravitating towards him.
Everybody's gravitating. Yeah, so
Everyone wants to hang
totally
around.
Makes sense. How do we build up that confidence? Now this is going into like a real coaching question.
It's a very good question, and what I would say is the first thing, number one thing you could do is you have to start spending some time with yourself. Like I feel like most people cannot fathom the idea of being alone without their phone for 20 minutes. Right?
I know.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that we all struggle with, right? Is the ability to just be and understand yourself. Once you start understanding yourself, you understand what you're missing, what you need to work on, right? It all stems from that.
Yes, absolutely.
So go on a date with yourself. That's number one.
Right, and I do that many, many times. I shut my phone at 7 o'clock, so
That's
I get to
amazing.
I get to be alone with myself. I also think that confidence really comes from making certain commitments and promises to yourself and keeping them, whether it's your goals or your dreams. If somebody is at the age of 25 or 30 and they haven't achieved and accomplished anything in their life, well, what should you feel confident about?
Exactly,
You know what I'm
exactly.
saying?
Productivity.
Right. I can't exactly tell you, no, it's okay. If you just feel good about yourself, you're doing the best you can. No, you're
100%.
not doing the best you can.
Right, and it all stems from if you sit alone, you know what
Right,
you need to do to
absolutely,
fix,
yeah.
and then you can go fix it, and then you can reaffirm your confidence by saying, look what I've accomplished.
Yeah.
Because with confidence, there's always an ebb and flow. No one's ever confident 100% of the day.
Right.
They're just not.
Right.
There are things that you're confident about, you're not confident about. But what brings you back, what anchors you, is your accomplishments.
Yeah.
So it all ties in.
Right. The best segilla, if somebody wants to find the shidduch.
I think my husband would say the Slurpee segula. No, I'm just joking because that was like a joke that he used. Like, oh, this at weddings, like, oh, the Slurpee is a segula, and that's a great way to find a date. I think the best. It's funny because with all these segulos, I always say that like you have to have a baseline connection with Hashem. Like you can't say, I'm gonna, keep this tefillah in my pocket, and I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, but then have no conversations with Hashem ever, right? Like never daven, never do anything. So, and it's different for everybody. Mm-hmm. So I say really the best segula is finding a really authentic connection with Hashem,
right,
and chesed.
Right. I think that people think of a segula as something that they do, and the segula has a power to heal. And in reality, the way a segila works is that when you do that special something, you're saying for 40 days to Tehillim every day, you changed. You're now a different person.
Right.
That 40 days of the consistency is something that you changed. And for guys, everybody knows the biggest challenges for men, what it is. And when you take on that challenge, the more difficult it is, you change. You change. 100%. You are different, no matter if you have to do it, if you don't have to, if you have to take on that challenge or not. But the moment you take on any challenge, whatever that is, right, you are changing as an individual. It's not that because of doing that
the little rock, the
thing.
gemstone that you got from this caver. It's not.
Exactly.
It's the work. It's the connection that you're putting in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lighting a candle on Shabbos, But if you're like doing that or doing this, like. But it's what's attached to it. If you're gonna make a malava malka and you're gonna, uplift your Moshe Shabbos, that's a segula.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I also like to tell people to start living that kind of life, and this goes into what people know today as visualization and affirmation and all these things. But my best advice to people is when people ask me like, Ellie, do you want to be a millionaire? And I say, I don't want to be a millionaire. I am a millionaire. And I've been saying that ever since I, started going into business. Before I even owned the business, to have the chance to be a millionaire, I've been saying that.
You actualize your dreams.
Yeah, and the same thing I'm saying every time my mother says like, you need to find a shidduch. I say, I already have my shidduch. I might have not found her, but I already have my shidduch. I say thank you to Hashem every single day. Many times for my soulmate. He knows where she is, and there's a chance that she needs another 5 years, and I'm okay with that. Or 10 years, whatever it is. I'm okay with it. He knows where my soul... And maybe she's going through a journey. Maybe she's not 18 yet. Maybe she's still married to her first husband. I don't know. It's none of my business, by the way. It's none of my business.
It's a very, very good perspective.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's being in that place. And I think that as a coach, you probably also have that job of seeing the mindset of a person when they even sit with you. Do you meet with people before they even start with dating, I guess, to prepare them, to get them started? It's
really any phase of dating. So they could be in middle of dating somebody. They could be haven't started yet at all. They could be about to go on a first date, just had a second date. It's really at any point in the process to be able to understand their feelings. Not me telling them what to do. Them understanding how to break down their own feelings and getting the proper tools to be able to move forward.
Right. What if a girl or a boy comes to you? Do you work mainly with girls or?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
What if they come to you and they say, look, I want to start dating. What do I do? Where do I start? Who do I have to be?
So then we start breaking down. We get history, we get background, we get context. Because I hate generalizing. I hate saying, okay, so this is what everyone needs to do as a step one, because it's not true. Everyone has their own set of circumstances. So we break down the situation. We understand also what their challenges are. You know, if she wants to start dating but she's terribly shy, we have to work on that a little bit, right?
Right.
So that there's not
so you would
quiet
work on
date.
that. Can you coach somebody on how to not be that shy?
Yeah, it's a lot of it's also confidence building. It's also understanding what fears you have as to that as to why you're not talking.
Right.
It's all like an understanding of a sense of self, right? And it's different for everybody. You're not the same as the person next to you, so why am I going to generalize and say everyone should do this?
Yes. Okay, that was all my dating questions. I feel like we closed the chapter on dating. I mean, that was awesome. One of the videos you posted recently was something about saying that you don't like these people that generalize their days like as if every day has to be okay. You don't have to judge the day. There's no right or wrong when it comes to feeling okay. And can you talk about that? Do you see people keep on judging themselves in that aspect?
Yeah, 100%. I'm saying I think we all know that a lot of people suffer from anxiety, depression on a very basic level. It doesn't have to be that they're medicated, but on a basic day-to-day. And I think a lot of that stems from the expectations that they set for themselves. It's very black and white. If I didn't do amazing things today, then my day was horrible.
Wow.
You know, and if I go online and I see what somebody else accomplished that day, I'm nothing. I'm absolutely nothing. Right. So it's a lot of perspective, a lot of zooming into yourself and zooming out of society and understanding what is productive for yourself and what's a good day for yourself.
Wow. And what is a good day for oneself?
I think that if you finish the day feeling like you did something different or new or learned something new, anything that makes you feel good about yourself is a good day. It doesn't have to be monumental though. If you end the day off and you said, you know, I really handled that situation well at work today. Like I didn't get upset. I usually get so upset and I didn't. I was able to just hold my own and keep quiet, and I felt really good about that. And it doesn't have to be this, you know, major thing where, oh, because you did that, you got a promotion. You know, it's something small. I felt good about it, therefore it was good.
Right.
Whatever makes a small, big thing that made you feel good that day, that's a win.
It's valid, yeah. Okay, at the end of I have two personal questions, which you don't have to answer. First of all, you are obviously married, and I see you have how many kids?
I have 4 children.
Four children. Can we know how you met your husband?
Sure.
Everybody loves a nice story.
So I actually, he was friends with my brother. So, but I knew nothing. I didn't really know him. It was like a peripheral for like he was in the I didn't know him that well. Okay. So he was friends with my brother, and then we both had a lot of mutual friends that knew us and that suggested that we go out, but we constantly just said no because it just didn't make any sense. We didn't think that we were for each other. It just didn't make any sense.
A little bit too close.
Also, my brother, if he's going to be watching this, is very overprotective, and I do not think that he would let anybody go out with me, let alone my husband. But there was just one, and like Hashem has his ways, obviously. So there's one specific circumstance where one of my friends and one of his friends were neighbors, and they really was like the last straw that broke the camel's back, where they suggested it. And so, of course, I asked my brother, and he actually went out with him and had a nice sit down with him and said, you know, this is a very serious situation. Don't mess around. Don't think that you could just date for months on end.
Wow.
And so we went out, and the rest is history.
How did you know that it's the one?
It's so funny. I felt really, really like this was a bracha for me, where for me, it was very almost like a logical conclusion where I knew that I didn't want to not have him in my life. Oh, wow. Like whatever it meant, obviously, there's always things that come up and differences and whatnot. But for me, I knew that I didn't want to not have him incorporated into my life, and if that meant okay, so I need to marry him. Right. That's how that translated.
Right. Okay. The second personal question is I'm just thinking about myself. What do you think happens when somebody is out in social media, in the public, has businesses, does a lot of big things? Is this something that naturally makes him more likable, makes him more dateable, or does it have opposite effects to it?
So I think that it has to do with the person and how it's affecting them, right? So if you're out there and you're doing big things, and then you're becoming somebody that you yourself dislike, right, or you don't even recognize anymore, that's a problem.
Right.
If you are going out there doing big things and it's giving you more confidence because you're seeing your accomplishments, and it's really like lifting you up, right? And you mentioned some great things about how you view, you know, certain circumstances and how you think Hashem every day, right? So like if that's the type of person that you are, based on all your experiences, I think you're headed in the right direction.
Right.
So it's just a matter of how your circumstances are affecting you. Because you could also have somebody that's not in the spotlight and that's, you know, quiet, you know, low-key person, but they're doing terrible things.
Right.
So it's not so much it's not so much the circumstances, it's how they're affecting you.
Right. Wow, I love that. Anything else that you are currently passionate about that you would like to share with the tens of thousands of people that will listen to this?
One of the biggest things for me is I really try to make dating less painful for everybody involved, for, you know, for shadchanim, for daters, things like that. So to me, any way to simplify a situation, specifically for a dater, is something that I'm very passionate about, because oftentimes, you know, everyone's emotions are involved, so it's very difficult to see clearly, to think clearly, and to come to the simplest conclusion. Right. So I try as much as I can to simplify the situation, make it as uncomplicated as possible, and give daters the chance to date in a pleasant way. Like, you know, a lot of times people ask me, what should I ask on a date? I really want to know this, I want to know that. What should I ask? What questions? And I always say you can gain the most important pieces of information and the best knowledge by asking the dumbest, silliest questions. Oh, wow. Because it lowers people's defenses, it gives you the ability to have organic conversation, and it leads into just whatever, you gain so much.
Yeah, I like to ask girls what's the craziest thing you ever done, you know, and seeing based on that what their answer is. Or like, what's your favorite thing in the world? You know, asking like see how they respond to it. Maybe they have a favorite thing, maybe not. It's an interesting question. Yeah. But it opens up. Yeah.
I'll dumb it down even more though. I always tell people to say like, you know, are you like watch the sunrise or watch the sunset? Like, are you like a night owl or are you like a morning person? Or like mustard or ketchup? Yeah. You know what I mean? And like mustard or ketchup will tell you, oh, I don't like anything. I never eat breakfast. I don't eat lunch or dinner. It tells you the whole schedule of the day in 1 second.
Like if he or she likes spicy and you don't, you're probably going to have a small problem.
You know, it's funny
though. Every meal is going to be different for you guys.
Those are the things I always say you could work out. You can work those things out. What you can't work out is character. Right. You cannot work out somebody's spicy character.
What does make a good match, by the way? That's a question we didn't talk about.
I think what makes a good match is both sides' willingness to want to be in the relationship. Meaning, you could have people that are complete opposites, and if their goals align, though, if their end goals align, and they want to, that's what they're achieving, then they have a fantastic relationship.
Compatibility versus, like, I guess, versus love, right? They say love is not enough. You need to have compatibility.
Right. Well, but you could be compatible with somebody, but not love them, though. Meaning, you could be like, on paper, this all makes sense. We're from the same background, fromness-wise. We you know, whatever, we have the same situation, same setup, and we both like ketchup and mustard, right? Yeah. But there's no love there. So basically, you have to have both.
Right. That's amazing. Okay, 2 short questions. How do people deal with parents, or how can parents that are listening to this be the most helpful towards their children?
So that's a very good question. I do speak to parents also a lot of times. So I think the best thing is to really, obviously you know your kid best, and to understand what they need in a situation. If your kid is the type of kid that after a date, even though you're like quelling and you need to know what happened, if they need to sit alone and process, let them do that. Let them sit for a bit, respect that, and then say, listen, I'm respecting the fact that you need time to sit, but come to me afterwards. Let's talk about it afterwards. Give them the platform to want to come to you also. Make it as comfortable as possible for them to want to speak to you.
Yeah, I like that. Chizik to all of those that are patiently waiting and they're very hurt, which is not a place where I am. I was hurt for many years, but I kind of learned, and as I built my connection with Hashem, I noticed that He does the best for me, and this is the best for me. If not, it would be different. I often say it's so easy for Him to make 2 people get engaged. I mean, you see it every day happening, so I don't think that He found it challenging for me more than any other person.
Right.
But the people that do need chizik, what would you tell them?
I would say that you're not nothing just because you're not married. Meaning that you can have a fantastic life going for yourself and you can have so many accomplishments. And of course, it doesn't take away from the fact that you want to enter another phase of life and you want to have a partner. But don't sell yourself short and think that you're less than just because you're not reaching the certain status. And as much as you can, try to find things that make you happy currently. Because at any stage of life, there are always things that you're going to want. It's never going to just be perfect. And I know that people know that conceptually, but it's important to hear. Nothing is ever going to be exactly how you want it. So if you start to exercise the ability to enjoy whatever's in front of you right now, in Mirz Hashem, when you do get married, and I say that as like a for sure, then you'll have the ability to always be happy with whatever's in front of you. Because marriage is not a piece of cake either.
Wow, that's super powerful. I like that. And I also think that, if I can add to this chizik, is that most people have a certain expectation of what marriage is going to be like.
Yeah.
And they have this expectation that it's going to bring them a feeling of happiness, like it's going to bring them a certain feeling. And in reality, you can start living with that feeling right now as if it already happened.
I love that.
And and that way you already get that. Especially, I think most people feel like with marriage, and especially in the Hasidic community, once you get married, you can drive, you can have a job, you can live in your own house. And I want to tell people, there's no reason to wait. When I was a bucher, it's now 10 years when I was a bucher. I'm still a bucher. When I was a bucher in yeshiva, it was very, very out of the box to do that, to go live alone or drive a car or work a job. It's 10 years later now. And it became very common. If you're a boy or a girl, make that perfect life that you have envisioned, start living it. If you want to live in your own house, live in your own house. If you want to work a job, open a business, or whatever it is, or travel the world, go have fun. Of course, it's nice to have your partner by your side.
For sure, but don't wait.
Right. And it can also be, I don't want to scare people off, but I was talking to one of my close friends this week. I was like, do you realize that maybe this is the best years of your life, and once you get married, it's just going to go downhill from there? No, he's like, why are you limiting myself? I said, I'm not limiting you. You're the one who keeps on saying Hashem. Maybe that's what Hashem has planned for you. So enjoy this moment right now. Because many people got married and their life turned to misery, and they had kids that they couldn't handle, and it was just too much for them. Of course, there's a blessing in all of that, but there's also the freedoms that come with right now. And you don't want to get married and look back and say, oh my, how did I waste all of that time? And
exactly, because it's so true and it's so important. Because if you're constantly waiting, then you're always going to be waiting. When you get married, you're going to be waiting for it to be more fun, or you're going to be hoping to go backwards.
Absolutely.
You're always going to be waiting.
If you're in a waiting energy, right.
If you're in the waiting room, you're always going to be in the waiting room. That's your mindset.
You're going to be waiting for a child, for a house.
Exactly.
For your kids
a
to
better
get engaged,
car,
for a better car. You're always going to be waiting.
You're waiting for your wife to be happier.
Yeah. One more word of chizik that I'm going to say. There was a Hasidic bucher that got married. He calls himself Melech HaDrivers. He has like a car service thing. He got engaged at the age of 39 to a girl that was 29.
Wow.
And he was talking about the difficulty. I mean, obviously, it's tremendously difficult to be a Hasidic bucher. And at 39, it's a lot. And I love what he said. He said that the moment I got engaged, all the years that I waited, and we're talking here 21 years, everything flew away. Everything was like this. It's as if nothing happened because I found the right one. I couldn't even think back. It was irrelevant. All the time that I waited, it was irrelevant because now I found the right one. And that's what I want to say to everybody listening. It's going to be the same experience for you. The moment that happens, you're just going to laugh and smile about it. Right now it might be very difficult, and there's multiple things that you want out of being married or that you believe in the expectation. But the moment it comes in, it's just going to be blissful.
Yeah, and so, like you were saying, just to add on, so all the angst and all the sadness and anxious, it all becomes irrelevant when you get married. So if you don't take the time to have fun now and to enjoy yourself now and to live your life now, you're going to be left regretting the fact that you didn't. You're thinking about all the angst that you had.
Absolutely. That's so beautiful. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for
really
having me.
appreciate it. And obviously, I'm going to put her Instagram and I don't know if you want to put your number in the WhatsApp. We can put it in the description. So that if you want to reach out, you can reach out and send her a message or have a call or book a session or whatever. I want to thank everybody for listening and thank everybody for being here. I want to remind you, since I did this in the middle of my workday, I want to remind people that I have a company called Weber Media. We do social media management for lots of companies. Klein's Ice Cream, RSVP Steakhouse, Bum Burger in Lakewood. A lot of different big brands that we help increase their sales through social media marketing. We have a great team that does it. If your business is women-based, then we have most of our team are female, so they can take care of the social media for you as well. If you're watching the podcast, you can also check out my vlogs. I release a vlog every Motzei Shabbos. We recently delivered the potato kegel to Yaakov Shwekey's concert, and I love the concert, so that's a lot of fun. And obviously, you can also follow me on social media. You can send me a WhatsApp. My link to my WhatsApp is in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. And remember to like the video, leave a comment, give us your feedback. We'd love to hear comments.
For sure.
And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I just want to say one more quick thing. All the places that you do marketing for are also great date spots. RSVP. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely.